Before the next episode of X Job Downloaded starts, I have a big favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our episodes so far, please can you click on the follow button on your platform. I'm on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon and YouTube. It costs nothing to follow, but makes a real difference to me as a podcast producer. Thank you. This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maleary and this is X Job Downloaded. And today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Michael Thwaites. Now, Mick was a police officer with Essex Police, started in the City of London and now he's in private industry. Good morning, Mick.
Good morning, Paul.
It's lovely to see you, and it's a weird experience, mate. So I get it, and I know that
it's more weird this side.
Yeah. But as we said before, this is your opportunity to give the, what did you do in the war, Grandad, so that you've got this for forever for your grandchildren and your grandchildren's children and so on and so forth, because this is will be stored on a cloud somewhere, and it's good stuff. So where did it all begin?
Well, you touched upon that, but it began in the City of London, the Square Mile, as they call it. I joined as a cadet in 1972. And it was quite bizarre, the reason why I actually joined the city, because my father ran the cigarette factory in Basildon, worked in the cigarette industry all his life. In fact, growing up, I spent time in the Belgian Congo as a kid and went to school in Malta, because every time a factory opened up, that's where we went. And we stayed there for a while and then moved on. But he had someone working in the factory in Basildon, and their son was in the City of London Police. I hadn't got a clue. I'd never heard of the City of London Police, although my sister actually worked at the Bank of England when she's 4 years older than me. So I knew she worked in London, and I knew she worked in the city. But I didn't link that to there was a separate force completely patrolling the Square Mile. So that's how I ended up.
So where were you born? Where were the Thwaites from?
Well, I was born in Leeds, and my Yorkshire background has probably shaped the way I think. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's not so good in terms of the temperament, the personality and everything else. But my family actually came from Batley, which is West Yorkshire.
Right.
And they were in all the Bates family on my dad's side. They're all miners.
Right.
And my dad also actually, when he started work, was an engineer in the mine. So mining, the mining background and the family. My granddad also ran the working men's club in Batley. So very working class, very labour, hard working.
Yeah.
You couldn't get more hard working than being a miner. So I think that, although I didn't spend huge amount of years in Yorkshire, go back frequently, still have a lot of family there. It has shaped the way I think. As I said, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. I'll let others be the judge of that, really.
That's fascinating. I mean, you've still got a slight accent in there somewhere, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. So did you go to school in Yorkshire, or you...
Yeah, actually, I went to school in Basildon as well.
Oh, right.
Not many people can say that, can they?
No.
And came out
and joined the police as well.
The police. But I went to boarding school in Yorkshire.
Right.
Just Robin Hood's Bay. And if anybody has ever been to Robin Hood's Bay, it's an absolutely beautiful place. But as you come out of Robin Hood's Bay, you go up the hill. Just on the left-hand side, there's a big mansion called Filing Hall.
Right.
Just on the edge of the moors. So bloody cold in winter. You can rest assured, loads of snow and loads of rain, but a stunning place. And I spent some time there with my sister, because the expectation was my father would be travelling abroad a lot. He wanted us to get some sort of education in the UK. So we were shipped off to boarding school.
So did you go to the Belgian Congo before you went to boarding school?
Yes. we came back from there, and then I went to the boarding school then. But actually, it's not called the Belgian Congo anyway. It became
DRC,
Zaire, and then that's the
yeah,
Democratic Republic of Congo. It's gone back again. But so we were shipped around a bit, and then we ended up in sunny Basildon, and he was obviously running the factory there, and the rest is history. That's the link then to Essex.
Wow.
I could have ended up probably anywhere really, and I was lucky. I do consider myself lucky.
So when you went to the city, you're 16 at this point?
Yeah. Joined on the 9th of June, 72. And I just had my 16th birthday. So,
wow.
And then went from living at home, and I'm one of 7 as well. So, there's 5 boys and 2 girls.
And where are you in the order?
I'm second.
Right.
And so they were probably glad to get me out of the house, to be honest.
Yeah.
There was a bit of space for the others, but I then lived up in the city, lived at Bishopsgate Police Station.
All right, in the section house.
In the section house, which has got an interesting link to the Second World War, because it was a hospital in the Second World War.
Oh, was it?
The upper floors, and so it's got a lot of history in its own right. And from 16, then just doing what I wanted to do, living away from home in central London with 20 or 30 other young people of a similar age, and the Lyceum Ballroom on a Friday night in the Strand.
Fantastic.
Sunday morning, walking all the way through to Green Park and around the West End, and the city, my link to the city then was well and truly enshrined. And I'm actually a freeman of the city.
Are you? Right.
Which was another story. At the same couple of weeks that Pavarotti became a freeman of the city.
Really?
Loads of people have heard of, obviously, Pavarotti, but
loads of people heard of you.
Heard of me.
When you're there, 1972, when we're talking about the IRA bombings taking place in London, and London was really very vibrant, but it was a different place to what it is now. Yes, there are still issues there, but as I say, that the terrorism and the other stuff that was taking place, did that have any impact on your life there as a cadet?
Yeah, very early. I think it was 1973, the Old Bailey bomb. Actually,
right.
It's quite a significant timing now, really, because it's exactly 50 years ago.
Is it really?
March.
Wow.
The IRA planted a bomb in a vehicle in the Old Bailey. It was interesting. I don't know if you're aware, but people call about the Old Bailey, and they consider that the court. But the Old Bailey is actually the street.
Right.
I don't know whether you knew
I didn't know that, no.
It links Ludgate Hill and Newgate Street at the top end. And all it is the passage that links the two. And the Central Criminal Court, Old Bailey, which is built on the site of the original Newgate prison, is the Central Criminal Court.
Right.
That's what its name is. But everyone calls it the Old Bailey.
Yeah.
As I said, the RA placed a vehicle. Well, you wouldn't get anywhere near now, would you?
No.
Prominent building now. There's no way.
There'd be a traffic warden there in about 30 seconds.
There'd be 10 cops and traffic warden would be moved. But in those days, they rocked up, parked there, and quite a few other vehicles were parked there. So although they got a warning, it took a bit of time. But as a result of that, the cadets, as I was a cadet, we were used in the casualty bureau. So it was my first inkling that something big happening. I'm not sure how useful I was. As a 16-year-old, nearly 17 at the time, because it was March.
Right.
And my birthday's March, the end of March.
Right.
So I think it was just a few weeks before my 17th birthday. So having me answering phones from people, distressed and worried about their loved ones was my first taste of major incidents and what we've been dealing with, you and I.
Yeah.
Since our career since.
Yeah. Interesting enough, a picture came up on social media to do with the bombing, and there was a barrister. There's a famous photograph of a barrister with a
injured head.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And that came up the other day. So yeah, that was probably what the significance was. So how long did you serve in the city?
Well, I was there till 78. So
Right.
I joined the job. An interesting time as well. But just before that was interesting because the Moorgate Tube disaster was 75,
Of course.
just before I joined the job. And we had a cadet, Margaret Lyles, who was on the tube, and she was trapped for 12 hours. She was the last individual. Bear in mind, there was 43, 46 killed,
Wow.
if I remember.
Yeah.
And she was the last individual to get out of the tube. They cut her out, and sadly, they had to remove her leg to get her out. And she was a cadet with me throughout my serving in the city. And then she went on still to serve in the City of London Police. And she worked in the control room, I think, until she retired and finished there. So, again, the Moorgate Tube disaster, one of those famous,
it is
infamous,
bizarre
incidents. We actually went there to help as a cadet. They shipped us up there to see whether we could serve tea or carry whatever we need to carry, or just assist. But I don't think, again, we were any great help. And then straight after that, I obviously joined the job and then spent my time in uniform at Bishopsgate. And I did go on CID and I got on the edges of the infamous Operation Countryman.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did you work with Barry Tarbin?
I know Barry Tarbin.
He's my neighbour.
Is he?
2 doors down, yeah.
Phil Cuthbert was the DCI and John Goldborn, the DS, and all those characters. And I was a TDC.
Right.
I was actually one of the first ones on the scene of the Daily Mirror shooting when the guard got shot. I think 2 uniform guys got there first, a lad called Graham Elliott, who actually I met up with. It was the 50th anniversary of the cadets in June.
Right.
And I organised a get-together in Stratford-upon-Avon.
Oh, lovely.
In the centre of the country. And we had about 20 or 30 of us all join up. And we spent the weekend together. And Graham was there. And I said he was, I think, the area car driver and got there first. And I think I was shortly after him, just a few minutes.
Did they ever catch the person responsible?
They did arrest a few individuals.
Right.
And there's an interesting story around that because the series Gold on TV at the moment, a lot of the characters are all touched upon.
Yeah.
I won't go into too much detail, but are all touched upon around that series.
Yeah.
It's interesting how
Yeah.
history comes back, doesn't it?
Oh, it continually repeats
It makes
itself.
us reflect on, what we've done in the past. But
Yeah.
towards 78, I think I'd got me 2 or 3 years in the job. And as you do, I used to play rugby for the city. And Sunday morning was always going to the Doggett's Coat and Badge just over Blackfriars Bridge for a pint.
Right.
And 3 of us decided we were going to leave the job and drive to Australia. So we got back to the section house, listened to the radio, put a call out to say, can anybody sell us a VW Caravanette? Because we want to drive to Australia. And believe it or not, within about 20 minutes, someone rang and said, I've got one. You can have it for a couple of £100, £300, whatever. And then within a few weeks, we just jumped in it and started to drive to Australia, as you do. No planning, no thought. I think I had a couple of quid in the bank, not a great deal of money. A girlfriend, which obviously she's now my wife, and we've been together 50 years.
Oh,
November.
brilliant.
6 grandkids. So I did come back and make good on the difficulties of me leaving had caused, and we didn't get very far. We got to Iran.
Did you?
Yeah, and the timing of arriving in Iran was surreal because it was 79,
Right.
78, 79.
Just going to go into the revolution.
Exactly. The Shah of Persia or Iran, he was actually married to a British woman.
Yes.
If you're aware of that. But if you drove into Tehran, which we did, it was like driving to New York. I mean, it was modern skyscrapers, a very, very Western modernised town. But we ended up in a little town just outside Tehran called Karaj, which is where the road goes up to the Caspian Sea.
Right.
And we met up with some locals. One of them, Ahmed Sultani Arab. I can remember his name, because he befriended us and took us to his house and looked after us, fed us, and we met the family. His father was actually a police officer in the Iranian police,
Wow.
but pro-Shah. So sadly, I don't know what happened to them.
You can only imagine
after that. But cut a long story short, we got jobs with a construction company called Marples Ridgeway, and infamously, I've built the road from Tehran to the Gulf, which is probably full of tanks now. So I've played a little part in that.
Well, I never.
And we then had no permits or anything, so we had a decision to make: were we going to be arrested and stuck in an Iranian prison, or we're going to jump on a plane and fly back to Blighty? And I'm back.
You're back.
You know what the decision was.
Had you signed off in the police? Had you?
Yeah.
So you'd actually left the police?
Oh yeah, no, we completely left. I mean,
wow.
We weren't. As I said, there was no thought on what we were going to do. It was one of those stupid things. But actually, I would never
Wouldn't
change
it.
anything.
No.
We had some fantastic adventures, and we met some, as you do, you throughout your life, we're all about people, aren't we? If you like the job. You can't be in the job without not liking people, can you?
No.
I find that bizarre.
Yeah.
When people moan. They go to a job, don't they? And they come back and we all moan, don't we? I mean, I'm not saying
we
don't
do.
moan. But not to like engaging with people, you can't be in the job, can you?
Of course you can't. That's not what it's about. It's a public-facing public service.
Yeah.
And like you, I love people and I like hearing their stories, and that's what that's why we're here. When you got back from Iran, I mean, I'm just picturing this in my head. So you've gone through Turkey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All the, you've seen
the Turkish-Iranian border. I'm not going to declare I was a druggie or anything else.
No.
When you're travelling, things happen, don't it? But when you get to the Turkish-Iranian border and you see the guards, and not guards as we think, they're all standing there in black leather jackets and quite harassing in one way, shape or form. They don't look like your friendly Bobby.
No.
In your local village. And I'm stereotyping, and I'm sure there's some lovely people work on the border. But when you arrive, you are very worried.
Yeah.
But they did, because we had a van. We painted it white, and we had Union Jacks all over it, and we had a map of the world. And every town we went in, city, we painted it on the side. So it was a big message, wasn't it? Yeah. And by then, if I show you a picture, I had long hair. And
all you're missing is Cliff Richard singing
exactly.
Summer Holiday.
Well, actually, we did. We had Cliff Richard's tapes and the shadows, that music.
Yeah.
The tape machine in the video with Caravanette was full of all that music, the 70s, which was, I loved it. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But as we pulled up the border, obviously, they pulled us to the side, and then they spent an hour or so pulling us apart. But thankfully, apart from Cliff Richard's CDs, and
there's nothing offensive
tapes, which some people would deem offensive now, there was nothing there, so we were okay, really. But interesting times.
So when you fly back to the UK, had the revolution started, or it was just on the?
Yeah, no, we flew from. We were in Zardan, which is on the border of Baluchistan, which is the area between Afghanistan and Iran. And we were right down in the bottom corner where Pakistan meets Baluchistan and Iran. So we were at the very bottom. So we had to get a local flight because there was no direct flight from Zardan. And we left the VW Caravanette in the middle of the desert. I think we gave it to the workers as a little runaround. And then we flew to Tehran, but we were locked in Tehran airport because outside there was all the tanks, literally. It was just taking off. That wasn't the plane, that was the revolution. Yeah. And we had a very small window of opportunity to get on the plane and fly back. I didn't tell anybody I was actually coming back. And
were your parents, because there's no social media?
No, we were...
How did you keep it? Did you keep in touch with anybody back
Well, we tried. I mean, there was American Express offices everywhere you go.
Right.
And the idea is that you give them a postal address of a town you're going to be in or a city.
Yeah.
Ahead of where you are, obviously. And the expectation is that they write there, and as you arrive there, you pick the letter up. That don't happen, does it?
No.
Because as you're driving along, I think we hit a dog in Turkey, and we had to flee the village. It must have been the prize village dog, and that took us in a different route altogether. And then something else happened. I think the wheel fell off, and then that caused a delay. And then we went down to Piraeus to try and get jobs on the yachts for the summer, and we missed the summer. So that didn't work out. So we never actually got anywhere with the letters. So strewn between here and southern Pakistan are all my letters, probably going back to the 70s.
Fascinating.
That we weren't able to collect. But as you said, there was no mobile phones, there was no blimmin' whatever else, and no social media or
TikTok.
TikTok and whatever else is the up-to-date thing now.
So when you come back, what do? You're back in the UK. What's the next?
Well, my priority was to go see my girlfriend. She was a nurse at Thwaites.
Right answer.
Exactly. My current wife and my only wife. Oh, did you notice I sort of got that in?
Yeah, you got that in there.
Oh my God. You never know who's going to pick this up.
No, exactly.
But no, I did actually. I didn't tell her. She had a flat in Bethnal Green Road, just along from the Blind Beggar, which obviously is infamous in its own right. She had a flat just along there, and Cambridge Heath Road, and
I know it. Yeah,
you know it.
Yeah,
the opposite the park there. She had a flat with a couple of her mates, the fellow nurses, and she was on, I think, late shift. So when I got there, she wasn't there. So I sat there, had a cup of tea with her mates, and then she just walked in and I was there. So, and then the rest is history.
How long had you been out of the country?
Only about 4 or 5 months.
Right.
It wasn't a massive amount of time.
So what was between arriving back in the UK and rejoining the police service, how long was that?
Again, I got back just sometime after Christmas, February, March, April time. And then I'm trying to date I joined Essex. It must have been March, April time.
Right.
Because literally within a month or so, 3 or 4 weeks.
You're back in.
Well, I did actually look around doing something else. And then I thought, I'd sort of try and rejoin. And because the family were in Basildon, my mum and dad lived in Basildon. And then I thought, well, I'd join Essex and I'll apply for Essex and see whether I get in or don't get in. I was toying with the idea of going into the Met or something.
Right.
But I did actually feel that I actually didn't want to go straight back in the job because it wasn't a huge amount of time from leaving. And I just felt I needed a sort of a break. But I did apply and it was a very quick process. I remember filling the form out and then was it Bunyard was the...
Yeah, Robert Bunyard was the chief then, yeah.
And I think he actually did the interview, I'm thinking.
Yeah, probably.
And literally it was a few questions. Where have you been? What have you been doing? Why did you leave? All that sort of stuff. And it wasn't in depth. And within minutes, it seemed, oh, you're in. And then that was it, really. And I was posted to Southend.
So this is 1980 now. And
1979.
79. Yeah, because in 86, I was interviewed by Jeff Markham, Graham Dossett, and Johnny Rhimes.
Oh, blimey!
Yeah, I mean, now you know, who knows who you get, but yeah, it was different. And you go to Southend. Did you know Southend at all at that point?
Only because when we, and again, I was very young, but when we flew back from Africa, we actually ended up for some reason, at the hotel at the bottom of Hancock Road.
Right.
I think it was the Overcliff Hotel. It's not there anymore. I mean, it's been well and truly it disappeared years ago. And we stayed for a very short while there before we could get a house in Basildon,
Right.
Leach Upper North, because he was waiting to get the job at Carreras. And we stayed in the hotel pending the house being available. So, I did obviously know Southend.
Yeah.
And living in Basildon, your day out, isn't it? You go down there to Adventure Island, which is bizarre, isn't it?
The irony.
It's not serendipity. What the word?
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
It's similar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's almost a deja vu sort of thing. Yeah.
Without doubt, deja vu.
Yeah.
And, things all go round, don't they? But yes, I didn't know it well, but I knew Southend.
Yeah.
And, but I knew I wanted to go somewhere where it was busy. But actually, I was posted to Rochford.
Right.
And my first ever job, I remember turning up at late turn. And I don't know if you know Rochford, but you only have 2 or 3 on a shift, literally. And it's a beautiful old house.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just, they must have had those types of police stations all over. I mean, that's a different discussion altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Where have all the police stations gone?
We can do that on another
We can do
interview.
that on another occasion without a shadow of a doubt, and touch on politics and really ramp it up. But I went to Rochford and then I sat down to get briefed by the skipper. And there wasn't any sergeants on shift. There was just one sergeant who ran the day, and I think one sergeant night or whatever. And then within 10 minutes, we got a call to Canewdon, Paglesham, where a lady had dropped a baby down a cesspit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That was my first. Obviously, she was suffering from postnatal depression and the rest of it. And literally, she was at the dining table, and obviously the kiddie was playing up or whatever. And sadly, she just picked it up, walked down the bottom of the garden, and dropped it down the cesspit.
Oh, my life.
That was the...
Welcome to Rochford.
Welcome to the sleepy hole.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very sad, isn't it? Very sad
that's
for the family,
yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Me thinking I was going to hibernate or do whatever. And that was literally within 10 minutes of me arriving.
But don't you think, I mean, I got posted to Braintree when I joined, and all my mates took the mickey out of me. Oh, yeah, sleepy old Braintree dealing with the theft of eggs. But it wasn't like that at all, because actually you had so few people on the shift that you actually dealt with everything. You didn't have people to rely on. You had to deal with it. And actually it carved me into the right person. How long were you at Rochford, though?
About a year, maybe 2 years. And then the sister, I mean, Rochford was an offshoot at Westcliff.
Yeah.
And part of Southend. Now I think it's part of Rayleigh.
Yeah.
Castle Point. But at that point, they ran it from Westcliff. So
right.
I think they actually had a chief inspector. God knows how many inspectors and shifts at Westcliff.
Yeah.
Now, well, it's closed, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like everywhere else. But
turn into flats.
At that point, and then Rochford. But I then went to Westcliff, which I mean, a fantastically diverse area. But bed sits, really densely populated. Yeah. But I think we had a minivan and a mini. You walked, didn't you?
Yeah, you met the people.
I was the neighbourhood beat officer for Hamlet Court Road.
Oh, were you?
Which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And again, the deja vu thing, because for 20 odd years I was on the hospital charity, raising money for Southend Hospital. And the last 8 years I was chair. And we've now got a shop, a charity shop in Hamlet Court Road. And it got broken into during COVID and the rest of it. So, but being the neighbourhood beat officer for Hamlet Court Road, I used to care for it. Every morning you'd walk in, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And
check the crimes. Had I missed anything? What happened? And then you'd walk out, wouldn't you? Yeah. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you never had a radio, did you?
No, that's right.
Quite often,
worked. Yeah.
I didn't have a radio.
Yeah, you
certainly didn't go out in the car unless you were pretty experienced and the rest of it.
You met the public and you dealt with them on a face-to-face basis. I don't know, mate. But anyway, like I say, we could discuss this one
yeah.
But was your service, was it broken? Did you were you able to rejoin your service up?
No, it was broken.
It was broken.
I left. On my...
So all your pension contributions from your first period were...
No, I think I was allowed to carry them in.
Right, okay.
At that point, but you still had to do your 30 years.
30 years.
I don't think the time in the job counted. I did in the end do 34 years.
Right.
But I did a full 30 in Essex.
Right. Well, I never.
But I literally had left completely.
Wow.
So it wasn't transferring.
Right.
And it was continuous service. It was a break-in service and then rejoining.
And of course, you're still young, though, aren't you? I mean, at that point, you're still a young.
I'm in
young
my early
bloke.
20s.
You're still a young bloke now, Mick. But at what point did you decide that promotion was going to be for you?
Well, again, the 80s were interesting, wasn't it? The miners' strike and the rest of it. And
did you have to go up to?
Yeah. I did about 10, 12 weeks, whatever it was.
How was that for a Yorkshire lad going up to?
It was quite tough.
Yeah.
Because I had sympathy on both sides. I mean, when you think the miners' strike really broke communities, broke families, didn't they?
Yeah, it did.
Brother against brother.
Still there.
It was still there. The hatred and was it Scargill and Thatcher?
Yeah.
I mean, that was
very divisive.
The two characters, weren't they, at the time that came together. And both were partly in the wrong, I think.
Yeah, they were.
When you look at it. There was no right or wrong answer to it. But I used to try and... I mean, my view is we're in the middle. If somebody wants to work and look after their family and feed their family, they should be allowed to do so, shouldn't they? Right?
Absolutely.
If someone feels that there's an issue, then they should be allowed to demonstrate and show that, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
But I don't think one should be above the other.
No.
And our job was to simply ensure that both were allowed to do what they're allowed to do.
Yeah.
But clearly there was animosity, and hatred, and God knows what, including against the police.
Oh, yeah.
But I did find, when you did talk to the people on the picket lines, and I did have an affinity with them. I mean, I hadn't lived up there, so I couldn't say I was a real Yorkshireman and the rest of it, but I counted myself as having that history and understanding, because a lot of my family was still there, and had been miners. So, I still spoke to them. But it was an interesting, but the dynamics as well, isn't it? When you get together with people in a van for that length of time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we had some funny. We did. I mean, they used to say we earned a few bob, and we did. We did overtime and the rest of it, and we did the job. But you also, some real characters.
Oh, yeah.
And some real laughs and real stories, and it was a time that really I did enjoy. I'm not saying I enjoyed the heartache and the difficulties that other people were going through, clearly. But the experience, I think, again, did mould me in one way, shape or form, really.
But the friendships and the camaraderie that you built there, because actually, again, didn't have the equipment. There wasn't, didn't have the public order equipment that the folks have got now. You had to have people watching your back, and people were out to hurt you. At the end of the day, the police were seen, albeit they were there for impartiality and to make sure that people could go to work and what have you. But they were seen as being part of the problem, as part of the Thatcher problem.
Absolutely,
and they were public enemy number one, and therefore the public that were involved in the protest, we had it here in Colchester, didn't we? At Wivenhoe and whatever. Yeah, and Brightonsea with the against live exports. It's just we're the public face, we were the public face, and that's.
And you've got. I mean, it's an honour to be there, isn't it? I mean, I was proud of being a police officer. I still am in terms of my career and the rest of it. And I still think it's such an important role. But when you're put into that situation, then you can only be as fair as you can be, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Without taking sides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Impartial as you possibly can be.
Yeah.
In the circumstances, and try and do the right thing. But it was an interesting part of my life. But just going back to the promotion thing, because why I brought it up was because part of it, I went there as an acting sergeant.
Right.
And that was my first sort of taste of... I never actually thought about taking exams. I actually wanted to be a dog handler.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was my real desire. But I was public order training at the garrison at Southend, and I broke my leg. My ankle snapped.
Right.
And I spent 12, 16 weeks in plaster. And I studied like hell. And then you could actually do both sergeants and inspectors.
Yeah, you could.
And I came believe it or not, a kid educated in Basildon, I came very high up in the promotion exams. And for some reason they thought I was clever, which was completely wrong. And I'd passed the exams, and from that point on, I wanted to be was going to be a dog handler, and then they sent me up there as acting sergeant, and then promotion came fairly quickly. And I moved on.
People will be listening to this, and this will sit with them. It was the manual of guidance then. It took longer to get the updates and change the updates in that bloody great book than it did to read the poxy thing.
Oh,
I mean, it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But there were great leaders come out of it, and I'm not sure whether the promotion system is fair or correct, but it is what it is. Did you serve in Southend for much longer after being promoted, or did you have to move?
I served in Southend up till about 86, and then I was promoted, and I was promoted to the wonderful place of Tilbury, which again is an absolutely fascinating community. And I got there on late term, and it's very difficult, isn't it? When you're acting at the same nick as where you've been a PC and that, you get to know everybody.
Yeah.
They know you, and they either respect you or they don't.
Yeah.
But when you turn up somewhere completely different on that first late turn, you brief the shift. They're all looking at you and they think, "Oh my God,
here we go.
What the hell have we got here? Is it good, bad, or is it indifferent? And is the world going to come to an end?" And I was pretty keen. I've always been pretty keen, to be honest. I just think it's a privilege to be a police officer.
Yeah.
And if you turn up for work, you should do your shift, shouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely right.
And there's plenty of other people who would love to be in your position.
Yeah.
So I turned up as a sergeant and briefed the shift, sent them out. And I'm probably embellishing this story, and I can't remember if it's the first or second day. But I was driving around Tilbury on my own, and I did a PNC on a car in front of me, and it came back as a disqualified driver. So I gave it a tug, and there was some big blocks of flats in Tilbury. I think it's George Tilbury House or something, right in the middle. They're about 20 floors, whatever it is. And I pulled up just underneath it and jumped out and nicked the driver for disqual. I thought, bloody great, new sergeant turns up, show him how it's done, that sort of thing, And I was pretty pleased with myself, and got the bloke out, was holding on to him, radioed up for a car to come and pick him up. And as I'm sort of standing there, I heard something coming through the sky. It's like a noise. I didn't know what it was. And then literally there was a big bang, and something hit the top of the police car. Obviously it had been thrown out of the flats. Oh.
Yeah, welcome to Tilbury.
And it bounced off and just missed me. And I waited for the other car to come and pick the prisoner up. And then I walked across to see what it was they'd thrown out. And it was a can of beans. And it was co-op beans. I'm not demonising or diminishing the importance of the co-op, but I think they were the cheapest can of beans you could probably get. And had it hit me, it literally would have killed me.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about what I'd have written on my epitaph. And I decided it would be been and gone. That is a true story.
Yeah.
And there was a big dent in the police car. But as I said, it was an interesting experience, and it never ended there. I mean, Tilbury was again, I had a great shift. And at the time as well, because I'd spent a lot of time studying, and I did a law degree as well.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah. And that's, thankfully to the job. They paid for me to spend 5 years studying law, which I've always been fascinated by. I spent hours and hours reading the Times law reports and God knows what, just to make sure I was, when I was custody sergeant or wherever else, I knew as much as the lawyers did. And I then taught PACE when it came out. They wanted someone to go around the county and teach PACE, and that was my job.
That was you.
And then the Public Order Act, you remember the changes then?
86, yeah.
So I spent a big chunk of that period.
Because 84, PACE was introduced in 84, and then they I can't remember what year it actually was implemented, and then 86 was when the new Public Order Act changed, and a couple of years later it was all brought into fruition. But
So throughout that period and within that period, I although I was based in Grays, I was sort of teaching as well, which was, again, I quite enjoyed. It was a nice period of time and lovely to work there. I mean, I worked at Ockenden as well as an inspector, and because I think I bounced back to Southend from there. The chief super was out. Actually, I lived in Southend still, and I was out with the kids, and then I bumped into the chief super walking his dog, and he said, "Thwaites, where are you at the moment?" I said, "I'm at Tilbury, Gray's boss, And he said, "Oh, do you like it there?" I said, "Yeah, it's a great place." He said, "Do you fancy coming back to Southend?" I said, "Well, it'd be all right." And then within a day or a couple of days, I got a message I was back there as custody sergeant and control sergeant and high street sergeant and all the other bits and pieces. And then straight after that, I think within 11 months or something, I got promoted to inspector, and they sent me back to Ockenden. So I'd left Grays and then straight back again.
I wonder what the footprint is now of policing in those areas. Because Tilbury was a place that was well populated with police. Ockenden, as you say, they had their own. Now it operates out of Grays and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'll get the figures and we'll do that. We'll do that chat at another day.
Yeah. I mean, you could talk for ages, couldn't you? And politics, leadership, and the way things are going, and whether the public have got confidence in the cops. I do believe. I mean, I don't want to sort of miss that point. I don't want to be too political, but I do think generally the cops try and do a good job.
I agree,
and they've always tried to do a good job, and they do it now. We were no better than people are now, and the bobbies. And we just took over from another generation.
Yeah, we did.
The ebb and flow of the job, really.
But it's guidance, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's guidance. I mean, I spoke to, I can't remember who it was now, and they said when they joined the police, every senior officer had served in the military.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every senior officer had done a national service, or that they'd done so. Their leadership skills had been honed while serving. Because now that doesn't happen. There is, that's a bygone era. In the main. But yeah, it is interesting. And there are people who I still refer to as my boss and who, they were very dynamic leaders.
Mm.
Whether that's still the case, I don't know. I've been out 6 years now, so I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sure that they're doing a great job there. But they're hamstrung. And I will talk a bit of politics here because if you look at Paris, for instance, there's 2.5 million people live in Paris, but there's 32,000 police officers plus police staff.
Mm.
You take London, you've got 9 million people, 30,000 cops plus staff.
Mm.
They can't possibly deal with everything that goes in there because the world has changed in the way that burglaries, thefts and everything else, that you've got your online presence. But instead of increasing the policing numbers and directing them correctly, they haven't. No. They've just gone with the numbers they've had forever, and we're in the state that we're in. And it's no fault, not entirely the fault of the cops. Some of it is around leadership and resourcing. But
no, I do think it's the politics and the leadership. I think if cops are led properly and directed properly and have the right ethos in terms of what their role is, and what they're trying to achieve, I think they will deliver as they try and do now. But trying to do what we used to do in terms of the scrutiny they're under now, and you talked about social media, mobile phones and God knows what, it's a totally different. And that's why I've got plenty to say, and I ran as the police crime commissioner as an independent because I wanted it to be impartial. And I've got plenty to say about it, even now, when they contact me. But it's not ever a criticism of the cops trying to do the job.
No.
It is the way they're led and the leadership, and it is around the politics that enshrine it.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the moment, and it's a very difficult time to be a cop, but throughout the generations, it's always been a difficult time, isn't it?
Yeah, the job that I joined wasn't the job that my dad joined,
exactly.
And so on and so forth.
You said about they used to be in the military, but there were also, when we joined in the 70s, there were people who joined in the 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
And you think the mindset and
yeah, absolutely,
the way they were living then, and what the thought process was, and everything else that surrounds that, is totally different generation.
Well, you talk about. I always remember my dad having removable collars on his shirts.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got so many shirts and so many collars, and you had to change them round, and it was completely different. So what happens next? You're an inspector in South Ockenden, and what happens whilst you're there?
Well, again, it's just when I was at Westcliff as a PC, Mick Todd he was lovely.
What a bloke!
And may he rest in peace.
Yeah.
He was a big inspiration to me. But we were at Westcliff together. He was a DC and I was a PC. And throughout the time, the way he came through the job, he was one of those people that, for whatever reason, actually popped up in Grays when I was there. He went to the Met on secondment.
He did.
And I bumped into him in Chelmsford, I don't know, when I was inspector. And he always, I was called him Mick and he called me Mick.
Yeah.
And he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm at Ockenden." He said, "Oh, there's a secondment coming up at in the Met at Forest Gate." He said, "Put in for it." I said, "Oh, do I want to do that?" He said, "Put in for it." And again, within weeks, I got it. So I was posted to Forest Gate as an inspector. And again, it's bad enough turning up as a sergeant at a shift in Essex.
But to go to...
when you turn up at the Met. But again, the shift were great. It was the old the new Forest Gate Nick.
On the corner of Green Street.
On the corner of Green Street. And that was a really good time. There was the riots in Brick Lane, which I was in the middle of, and a couple of murders and various bits and pieces. But again, my style of leadership was never ever. I mean, people listening to this might think different, but I never liked sitting in the nick.
No. And
if anything happened, it wasn't that I wanted to intrude or get in their way of doing the job, but I felt quite often I'd need to be there.
Yeah.
As a leader, you want to be at the front, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
And plus, if you like policing, if an interesting job comes up, no matter what rank you are, you want to be there, don't you?
Of course you do.
So, but again, but funny enough, there was a big review of, was it sector policing? Do you remember that?
Yeah. And
they were linking in with Plasto and breaking up the Met divisions and the rest of it. And suddenly, Dave Solman was the chief super at Forest Gate, Newham, and he said to me, "We need to review the way we police the area." And funny enough, I decided you're going to do the review. So I came in from Essex thinking I was going to spend a lot of time on shift. And next thing, I'm spending most of my time putting together a case for joining Newham as a policing area and breaking Forest Gate up and bringing Plasto into it and redefining the way it was structured and everything. But
because down on the left-hand side, you've got Upton Park, you've got a huge Asian community there, the Queen's Market, the pub.
I mean, walking down Green Street
brilliant.
Is the Balti houses. I mean, I love Asian food, Lebanese food. I mean, you're aware I go over to Dubai quite often.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is around the food and the culture.
Brilliant.
And Green Street, to walk down Green Street and go into some of the Balti houses is absolutely
great people.
Incredible. Yeah, great people, great community.
Yeah.
And great place to police, but
it is all about community.
Yeah.
You know, we complain on a regular basis that our community is imploding, whereas, you know, the Asian communities are expanding but they look after each other, which, you know, we could learn a lot from with some of the stuff that we do.
I mean, I've got a lot of friends in the Muslim community, the Bangladeshi community in Southend, and you know, huge respect to them.
Yeah.
They've been in the country many years. They add enormous amounts of value. They work extremely hard. They care about where they live. They raise huge amounts of money for charity.
Yeah, they do.
Local charities, and support local charities. And also they do, you know, support particularly Bangladesh when the floods and everything else were there. So no, I just think having a diverse community, not only just for the food, but for the people and the culture, is absolutely fantastic and vital.
Do you remember Ray Berman?
Yeah.
I interviewed him the other week. He's a vicar now.
Is he?
He's a vicar at Hockwold, which is the other
I'd
side.
love to speak to Ray.
Oh, well, I'll give you his number when we finish this.
We didn't always see eye to eye, but we were both inspectors at Grays together.
Yeah.
We had both different way of doing things.
Different policing styles, yeah.
And but our common link was Toddy.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, and his name came up. His name came up. I interviewed a guy the other week who was in Nottinghamshire, and because Mick went up there to be the ACC, and he's sitting next to this chap, and he said, "What do you think of the new computer system?" He said, "I think it's bloody rubbish." And it was Mick Todd that he was talking to. Yeah. So you've done your spell at Forest Gate. Why didn't you stay in the Met? Because at that time there was a big drive for people to transfer and stay.
Well, bear in mind, I had a family in Southend,
True.
so that's an important thing. My wife actually comes from London. She's North London, Finchley.
Right.
So we've got a lot of family in North London. But again, and I go back to Toddy, I mean, I was coming back, and he knew I was coming back from Forest Gate, and suddenly I got a call from him and saying that there was a job to draw up a plan, prepare a plan to deal with hijacked aircraft at Stansted Airport.
Right.
And put together remounts. I don't know if you know what a remount.
Yeah.
Terrorist exercises to test the plan. So you've got to write the plan and then put it into place. And I said, "What the hell's that about? You know, I've never been involved in that." He said, "Don't worry." He said, "You're fine." And then I just came back, and I went straight to Stansted Airport, Enterprise House.
Oh, did you?
And then.
So you made that journey every day from.
Yeah. From Southend.
From Southend.
I left extremely early in the morning.
Yeah, I bet.
And got back extremely. But you're aware I'm still a motorcyclist. So
yes. I
used to go to work at FSU and support division, operations division, whatever the hell you want to call it. On my motorbike every day.
Right.
Sometimes I did go up to Stansted on the bike.
And so remount, I mean, for those people listening, that is literally you're testing the plan around special forces coming in, absolutely everybody that gets involved. I don't know if it still is, but it was the hijack airport for Essex.
Actually, only last weekend a plane flew in.
Yes, it did, didn't it?
It lost
Typhoons.
Contact. And the jets escorted it
Coningsby,
into Stansted.
Stansted, yeah, so that's right. You're absolutely right.
I'd imagine it's still, if you can manipulate it there, and then that's what you do.
Yeah.
I actually went down to Hereford and debriefed the SES.
Did you ever get any live jobs? Because we had 3 hijackings there in total over the years, haven't we?
Well, I did. I can't remember which one it was now, but
Sudanese, Afghanistan.
The chief, he was gold, and I think I was. It came out. I think I was away. I was in France, and as I'm driving back, I heard it come over the radio. There's been a hijack, and I think to myself, you spent all that time writing the bloody plan, and then now, typical. I'm not actually there, but I did get back, and I ended up in the police main base station as part of the support to Gold. So I did see. I wasn't at the sharp end, but I did see
plans in action.
Yeah, it happening. Which actually, in your career, when you've written a plan, to see a plan actually being used is something, isn't it?
I mean, touch wood, there'll be people join it's been 20 years, I think, since the last one.
Mm.
January 2000, I think, was the Sudanese or the Afghani.
Blimey, your memory is far.
So it was, so it was around that time, and there'll be people that go through their whole service and will never have been involved in we were doing the actions when they were doing the hostage removal from the planes. We were doing the stuff around that, which was quite interesting in itself. But how long were you at the airport? Because the airport's evolved hugely over time. It
was literally 12 months.
Right.
So it was getting there, and I can't remember. So I left the Met, I don't know, March, April time. And then I think the following March, April, 2000, when would that have been? 94?
Right.
93, 94? Would have been, I spent a year there then.
Right.
Literally doing the plan. And then the exercise, and then the debrief, a short debrief. And then I was posted again.
Right.
Jim Dickinson was actually remember Jim?
Yeah, I do remember.
And actually, we touched base twice because I told you a story about turning up at Rochford.
Yeah.
For the sad job that the lady with the kiddie. Well, Jim Dick was the DCI.
Oh, was he?
At that job. He turned up on that afternoon to
Jim and Tom Dickinson.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I then worked for him when he was the DCC, wasn't he?
He was DCC, yeah.
Constable. When he did the remount. So
I remember getting told off by him in his office.
Did you?
Yeah, because my pocket notebook was not up to date.
Really?
Yeah, well, it was all following the issues at Braintree with the Essex boys and their connections with Darren Nichols.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, that was an interesting time in my life. So we're talking, so it'd be about 96 when he was the deputy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
95 was when the rest of the murders took place, and 96 is when we all got told off. But were you? What point did you become chief inspector?
Was it 96, 97?
Oh, okay. So it'd been about that time. Did you ever go on traffic? Because I always remember you had a white hat.
Well, yes, I did, because I went as the support chief inspector.
Right.
On traffic.
Yep.
Des McGarr. Again, one of the
nice gentlemen.
These people, I said Toddy sort of framed the way I thought about the job, but Des McGarr certainly did as well. If you ever worked for Des, he was very, very detailed. Everything had to be absolutely perfect. But his actually care for dealing with the victims of road death and the families involved and people like Road Peace.
Yeah.
He would remember every job he dealt with. And quite often, the anniversary, he would contact the family.
Really?
Or send them a note or something. He showed a very caring nature. But when he debriefed you, if a job came in, the next morning you were called out to something. Because again, like you did as an SIO or whatever, as a detective, we'd get called out in the middle of the night to a road death or whatever. And I always liked to be on the rota. So not just the inspectors, but myself and the ops chief inspector, we would be on the rota. So we would go out, and then obviously Des would come in the morning and want to know the ins and outs. And believe me, he'd want to know the ins and outs. And you made sure
you knew everything.
You knew everything there was about it. But again, I learned so much from him in terms of what's important in life and what you should do as a cop.
And were we based at Boreham then, or where were you?
No, we started off at where the skid pan was.
Yeah, the skid pan. Yeah. Yeah. What's it? Kingston House.
Kingston House.
Yeah.
I think Doug Adams then took over from Des. From Des.
Yeah. Yeah, it was completely different, wasn't it? Because you had the skid pan. People had to learn how to do a control skid on a greasy. It was great fun on a driving course.
Clockwise, anti-clockwise.
Yeah, link ups. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant.
And obviously, the advanced training and all the rest of it. And I was never actually a very good driver. I'll say that. My wife will say that as well. No, what I'm saying is there are people who are natural drivers.
Oh, yeah, there are.
I'm not. I have to work at it.
Yeah.
And I always found the advanced course and all the driving courses. Someone used to get in the driver's seat, didn't they? Just poof.
Yeah, they're gone.
And when you're in there, I always preferred to be in the passenger seat if I'm going to a job with a good driver.
Yeah.
I didn't like being in the passenger seat with a bad driver.
No.
And I'd rather have a good driver than me driving. But I enjoyed it. I said I enjoyed traffic. And I do think we've lost something there because their knowledge.
Agreed.
And the travelling criminal. People think traffic officers just, to be honest, they know everybody, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
The intelligence around vehicles, where they are, where they're going. And also they're very, very generally proactive in terms of their mindset.
And the thing is that criminals, like you say, they travel. They don't parachute in. No. Yes, you do get people that live close. But if you can disqualify somebody for totting up or drink driving or whatever, if they're a burglar, they'll say, oh, there goes Joe Bloggs, the burglar, he's disqualified. And automatically they'll get stopped. But if they just say, oh, there's Joe Bloggs, they won't even take any notice of it. And it's a big tool in the
It's like Al Capone and tax, isn't it? If you get them off the street for anything, then that's one less person committing a crime and causing mayhem in terms of victims.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all the pain and suffering that comes with that.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying do anything dishonest.
No.
But you use the law to deal with
audaciously.
Criminals,
audaciously,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
there are different ways to skin a cat, aren't there? And that's exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you can take them off the road for discord driving, warrants or totting up or whatever, red diesel or whatever thing you've got. But no, I enjoyed my time, and I enjoyed working with particularly the TRU and the expertise you need.
Oh.
We had the big crash in M25. You remember? There was that bloke came out of the army, driving a skip lorry, got hit up the back. Driver fell asleep, and it went across Central Reservation, hit several other cars.
Yeah, 2
or 3 dead, absolutely carnage. And transport company, they were just driving around the clock.
Pushing
the cause of it between the airports and the amount of times, whether it's tachographs or whatever. You could show CCTV, everything else you used to show how long they were driving and how much sleep they'd had. There's a real lot of work and dedication.
It's a precise science,
without doubt.
Harry Sexton, I think he.
Oh, Harry, blimey, you bring a name up there, didn't you?
You get a tachograph, anything, and major crime. We would use him because, if we had a lorry death and where some people died in the lorry, these people will be used for everything because of their attention to detail and their ability to investigate.
Yeah.
I think he had to get a degree or some qualification in what he did. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh, he was dedicated.
He was. Yeah.
He was a lovely character.
Yeah.
A real character.
Grumpy sod sometimes.
Grumpy. But I like, he had a strong character.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And I like that about people.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is, I don't care whether they're grumpy or not. If they can do the job.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not interested in standing at a bar with him having a pint.
No, you want.
I like that, but if someone's good at the job, and he was good at his job,
absolutely right.
And I think huge respect for him.
Yeah,
it's funny. I couldn't think, and you just suddenly said that name.
But there were some real characters on right across the police service, and I'm sure there are now, but. Certainly within traffic and CID, and there was always that rivalry, wasn't there, between the CID and the traffic?
Yeah.
And it was good fun.
The black rats.
The black rats, yeah. It was, and some still thrive on that. They still have a rat in the back of the window on their cars, and I find it quite funny. When you were there, did you move on from mobile support, from traffic, or did you see the rest of your time? Because
No. I got promoted to superintendent, and they told me I was going to be head of criminal justice. And I'm thinking to myself, my whole career was operational.
Yeah.
Public order, I was a bronze PSU commander. I'd done everything around public order and Brightlingsea, animal rights, and God knows what. So, and then to be said, you're now going to be head of criminal justice, sitting behind a desk. And the other thing is, I'd never been responsible for support staff. But again, I really learnt a lot, and I had huge respect. We had criminal justice units across.
Trish Brennan.
Oh, Trish.
I saw her the other week.
Did you? How is she?
Yeah, she's fine.
I tell you what, she was fantastic.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to upset her.
Oh, no.
But, I won't say, our greetings in the morning when I used to walk in the office was not what you'd want to on tape. But again, she was great. I mean, she was
on the ball.
She knew her job. She'd tell you how it was. I mean, she was lovely.
Yeah.
I did afterwards visit her quite a few times, and I did respect her, and she was fantastic support. Yeah. Bear in mind, I'd just been parachuted in there, didn't have a bloody clue, and I relied on her to tell me what time of day was, never mind anything else. So, and she was great. I mean, she was extremely supportive.
And that's every single file from minor traffic process through to murders would go through the CJU.
Without doubt, yeah.
Everything.
And you were responsible for all the courts.
Yeah. And the outcomes. Courts. I mean, you're not responsible for the outcome per se.
The quality of the file.
But the quality of the files which produced a good outcome.
And we also had, what was you probably remember that, but I think it was Jeff Markham dealt with it, the murder in one of the prison cells at Chelmsford.
Oh, yeah. What was the name?
Where they put
the fellow with mental health in with the other...
and I worked on that for a period of time.
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of the... Yeah, I know the officers that were involved in the remand hearing. I worked with them, but yeah.
So there was a lot, when you talk about it, it's actually not an office job.
No, not at all.
It's fundamental to what... Because it's all right nicking someone, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you need to get them to court.
Yeah, you do.
And you need to get them convicted.
Yeah.
And you need quality evidence.
Yeah.
And you need the public to support you, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is one of the conversations we'll have another time.
Yeah.
You need the confidence of the public to come forward. And you need all that coming together to get a conviction. And we always argue that the conviction rates and everything else. So I think criminal justice, again, it was one of those points. If you'd have told me before, do you want to go on criminal justice as superintendent? I'd have said, no.
Not a chance.
And the other thing was, I had people like Pete Sheldrake downstairs. They started community safety.
Yeah.
So I was upstairs and he was downstairs. Can you imagine?
Yes, I can. He used to break my fingers every time he shook my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again,
character.
What a
bloke.
What a character.
Yeah.
And again, I used to bounce into work every day thinking, because I had to pass his office to get to mine upstairs.
Oh, right.
So we'd always touch base.
Yeah. In
his usual way.
Great guy.
Great guy.
How long were you there for then?
God, I think again, 18 months.
Because it's a very political role. You are literally, from a strategic perspective, you are tied into the chief officers because they're keeping an eye on detection 100%. Rates, and so it's quite a high profile role.
I'd go for dinner with the judges.
Yeah.
At the Crown Court, and someone who was educated in Basildon and brought up in Yorkshire, sitting with that lot. And again, I'm not stereotyping, but it's interesting. The conversations you have.
Brian Watling, Peter Greenwood.
Yeah. There's a chap called Maxie Lewis as well. And Frank Lockhart and all sorts of people within criminal justice going back years, and real characters.
Yeah.
And again, like everything else, isn't it? Good, bad, and indifferent, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who know their job and are very good at it, and you respect them without doubt. But it just took me into an area where I hadn't sort of touched base before, although I had a law degree. So, and I really enjoyed the law, and still to this day, I spend a lot of time. If I see a case that I'm interested in, I'll spend a lot of time reading up on it and the background to it. So, no, I did. It was turn the clock back, I wouldn't change anything. I learned a hell of a lot from people like Trish Brennan and other people.
Yeah.
Within criminal justice.
Did you get promoted from criminal justice?
Yeah. And again, deja vu. Mick Benning, who again was
another
one of those
name.
characters. I discovered that he was leaving Southend. He was division commander, and I always had my eye on that post. And I think I went down and spoke to him. And is it right, Mick? You're talking about leaving? He said, "Yeah, I'm jacking it in." I said, "When sort of thing?" And he told me in confidence, and I said, "Right, that's." So in the end, I geared up to, and thankfully, the gods were working in my favour, and I ended up sitting in that seat and walking into, was it McConaughey, the ex-chief constable of the old borough of Southend?
Yeah.
There was some criminal case around him. I can't
there
remember,
is,
some
yeah.
corruption thing, but I don't know if you ever went into that office, but it was huge, and it had a handmade desk in there, and apparently the sergeant and PC made it on nights.
Really?
The desk. They're both coming from a carpentry background. We talk about
the
skills that people bring into the job. And I had this huge desk, and next to it were photographs of everybody who had been in the division, going back donkey's years. Because
it was a borough, wasn't it? I mean, it was standalone.
So the chief super or the ex-chief constable of Southend could see the photograph of the person and then think, "Oh, that's the name." And you pulled out a tray, and it still had all the photographs in there.
Well, I never.
And handmade trays as well. You know, the paper trays. They're all handmade wood. And there was panelling. I had a dressing room and a shower room. And
I wonder what that's like now.
Oh God, it's probably about 10th the size.
Yeah, it's got an IKEA desk.
Big settee, coffee table. I mean, it was beautiful plush carpet. And walking in there,
you made it.
It just felt right.
Yeah.
And again, I loved it. I mean, Southend was a great division, and again, it was a privilege and an honour to be in that position.
And if you took yourself back, and I do this with everyone, but if you took yourself back to the lad who was in Basel that was joining the cadets in the city and then went travelling, what would your dad be thinking? Was your dad still with us at that point?
No, he died. No, I think he died by then.
I wonder what
my mum was.
Your mum was, yeah.
My mum, she collected, because you do, like you did, you appear in the paper, didn't you?
Yeah.
You talk absolute rubbish and someone prints it at various times of your career. And she literally collected every single paper clipping whenever I appeared. She did live in Yorkshire for many times. Then she moved down to Brentwood, Shenfield,
right,
and lived there. But she did collect all the bits and pieces, which again, when you reflect back on, they're quite interesting. But no, to me, I've always said that I like talking to. I always used to, because when you left the job, you used to try and talk to people when they left, and say thank you for your service.
Used to. That doesn't happen now.
I mean, that's sad.
Yeah, it's sad.
I used to try and talk to everybody. Not everybody wanted to talk to you.
No.
Everyone's got a view that they can do the job better than you can.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And my view was, if you want to do it, pass the exams, get promoted.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you can take over.
Yeah.
And then you can make the decisions.
Yeah.
But I used to try and talk to all of them and bring them up, have a cup of tea with them and the rest of it. And just talk like we're doing now, really. And thank them. But if they walked out and enjoyed their career, whatever rank they were, whatever job they did, I think that's fantastic success,
I agree.
isn't it? I mean, I enjoyed my job, and I see that as success. I did do a stint as assistant chief constable. I was a temporary assistant chief constable as well. So I'd like to think, I went into ACPO at a very short time. I'm trying to think who it was who did the inquiry in the Met, and then we backfilled. Myself and Ian Brown did it, which is another character.
Oh, yeah.
Brownie, just lovely.
Jim Conlon, I know he went to the Met to do the...
No, it wasn't him. I'm trying to think it was. But anyway, so, when you reflect back on it, I think I had a successful career because I enjoyed it. Yeah. Not because you achieved a rank or position.
Yeah, but it does count.
And you did things. Do you think it counts?
Yeah, I think it counts. I think it does. I think if you'd started at 16, you were happy to be a cadet. You go to Moorgate and that. The fact that you've aspired and you've gone on and got yourself promoted, and you've maintained normality, I think that is, I think that's fantastic personally, because I know people that have gone on and they've lost that touch of reality, and I'm not blowing smoke out your backside, but they've lost that touch of reality, and then when they leave, they want to have that. They want to be your pal again, and it's really, but that happens. But as I say, I wonder what your dad would have thought when you did take up the seat as a temporary ACC, or, the lad from Yorkshire that's gone around the world.
I mean, it's like, it's just so difficult, isn't it? Because we sort of pick up. I don't think our parents were that great, and I wasn't, to be honest. I mean, in terms of my kids and the rest of it, just saying well done and you've done fantastically well and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't in our DNA.
We're the greatest critics.
Exactly. I mean, I always say, probably of every 10 jobs I dealt with, towards the end, when I got experienced, there's 2 I reflect. I wish I'd have done that differently or better.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never got 10 out of 10. And I never probably reflected the same with all my kids have done fantastic, the grandkids. I mean, that's what's important in life, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
When you reflect on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The rest of it pales into insignificance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you
having your kids doing well and enjoying life and having successful careers, and your grandkids now, I said my 2 oldest grandkids are working and they've got their own careers and the rest of it.
That's brilliant.
To see that, to me, is success as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
huge success.
And we're lucky.
We are lucky.
I know you do make your own luck, but I don't have to wait. If I wake up in the morning and want something to eat, I've got food on the table,
exactly.
I've got a roof, and I believe in that. I believe that kids, this is my socialist side. I do believe that kids should have opportunities. Yeah. Just because they haven't got the money in their pockets doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to play football or do all the things that my kids did. So,
and you strive as a parent and a grandparent to do all you can to support them.
Yeah, of course.
And to me, that's my job.
Yeah, and we're now in a position to do that.
And you're able to do that from the experience you've had.
Yeah.
But no, as I said, they make their own decisions. You've spoken to my son.
Yeah.
And clearly,
smashing bloke.
You can sit there and give all the advice in the world, but quite rightly, they make their own decisions.
Of course,
and you try and support them, don't you?
Of course they do. And you're right though. We're very rarely really proud of what you've done. I mean, my parents weren't. I know they are.
Yeah.
My folks are still around. I know that they are, but very rare would they say, "Oh yeah, we saw you do this or this job. Read about this job, whatever." But I know deep down, my dad's an ex-copper, and he's got that, that ethos.
Yeah.
Obviously, my brother and my Uncle Kev and what have you. So, but you've come into the end of your service. What was the best part of being in the police? I mean, what was your best role?
I mean, that is hugely difficult. I suppose when I was head of operations division, as it was then, with FSU traffic and all the other bits and pieces. And the reason being, because you could be a chief superintendent, but you could still, because I was a specialist silver, CBRN gold, silver, public order gold, silver, football commander's course. And I did Leeds, Southend, Man United Southend, all those. And I still went on firearms operations.
You had all the toys, didn't you?
You had all the people around you. But if you got the job came in and you were able to do it, then you go as the silver commander, or I was gold commander for the job.
Yeah.
So you were still very operational, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think to be able to do that throughout your career. And again, I worked with every single place I've worked with, I've worked with some fantastic people doing a great job. But when you manage, it comes to what I'm doing now, really, in terms of the private sector. But people who manage risk well are very good.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Because they manage risk well. Because every decision you make, there's an up and down.
Of course there is.
And if you're risk averse, particularly in the police, you might as well forget it.
Forget it, yeah.
And that's why I say, the politicians, police crime commissioners, all the rest of it, being politically affiliated, it's just gone the wrong way.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
But I do think the people I've met, the tactical advisors, and some very good silver commanders and the rest of it, people that you want to turn up at a job and have them next to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because of the skill they've got, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I talked about Trish Brennan, all the other bits, Mick Todd, all those people going back a long, long way. Harry Sexton, whatever job they did, whatever rank they were, it was because they were really good at what they did.
Consummate professionals.
A lot of that was around the way they managed risk and the work they put into it.
Yeah.
To be as good as they were. So, and within Mobile Support Division. And the other thing is, being up at Boreham, I mean, that facility.
Oh, yeah.
I negotiated that and we were there. And
that's a real boy's own sort of.
It was. Some of the things, National Crime Agency and all sorts of stuff we got involved in.
Yeah.
And, and the other thing was interesting was every time you debrief the job, when you had people like Tim Stokes and Kevin Bailey and people like that with you, when you sat in the room and debriefed the job, you debriefed the job.
Yeah. There's no punches pulled.
Jed Stouffer.
Yeah.
And all of those characters I had a privilege of working with.
Yeah.
We didn't always agree.
No.
But you sat in a job, and when you would sat in a debrief, but afterwards, you'd be rest assured, or you planned a job, you'd be rest assured you'd be 9/10 there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the way they did it.
Yeah.
And their thought processes. And with anything, you should always surround yourself with people that can deal with your weaknesses, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, and I use this to a former deputy chief constable who didn't like it, but we would talk about HR issues, and I said, well, with the greatest respect, Alex Ferguson didn't ask an HR professional who was going to score goals for him.
Absolutely.
He chose the team that was right for for him. And I still believe that. I believe in fairness as well, and I don't think people should be excluded. But I think that you should have the autonomy to have the right people to do the right job. But
was it Jeff Markham used to say you draw accountability up and responsibility down?
Yeah.
But you're always accountable, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can delegate, you can give people responsibility, but ultimately you have got to
sits
take
in your lap. Yeah.
The blame, the good, the bad, and the ugly, haven't you? And that's what you do as a leader.
So when you hand back your warrant card, that piece of plastic that's going to save your life, what's next? What happens?
Well, I mean, there's a reason why I did that, and because my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, sorry.
No, there's a positive story, because I talked about I was chair of the hospital foundation.
Yeah.
And we were raising money for digital mammography machines.
Right.
You can't say that when you've had a few pints.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time my wife would be diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow.
So I was raising money for a piece of equipment to better diagnose breast cancer, and then my wife was diagnosed with it. And I took the decision, one of the decisions I took. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet there, because at the same time, sadly, Liam Brigginshaw died.
Yes.
And we had the Liam Brigginshaw Trophy, and I was the first recipient of it.
Right.
The greatest contribution, whatever they said, to policing. And I didn't even turn up at the ceremony to receive the award that was given to me afterwards, really, because I was dealing with the repercussions of the wife being diagnosed.
Right.
And she went through treatment and all the rest of it. And she's, as thankfully, touch wood, she's extremely healthy.
Good.
So that drove my decision, because people did say, stay on. And I was offered a few bits and pieces in headquarters, and I felt, it is time to. There's always time, isn't there, to come in somewhere and go out somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
And don't overstay your welcome.
No.
And I think that was a good time all the way around.
And you know when it's right for you as well.
You do.
Yeah.
Not some people don't know it's right for them.
No.
And they do hang on. But my message is, if nothing else, in this chat and podcast, is that there's life after the job.
Hugely. Well, you look at the amazing things that you did. I mean, you stood for the Police and Crime Commissioner.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
an experience.
Oh.
And I met some of the most wonderful people. And the support I got was unbelievable.
We were with you, mate. I tell you, we were with you all the way. I know what the rank and file wanted.
I got within I think I got 57, 58, 59,000 votes, and I think they won with just over 60,000. So we got close. Bear in mind, they had unlimited budget, but the people in the job and outside that I got the support from, I mean, absolutely, unbelievable. But on the other hand, I got some real stick.
Oh, I know.
I mean, there were some nasty individuals out there who did everything they could. But again, that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the murky world of politics. Mm. But now you're working with Stockvale, Adventure Island. I mean, the largest entertainment centre in Essex, basically.
Without doubt, yeah.
How did you get involved down there?
Well, Philip, who owns it.
What a character he is.
He's a real character.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend hours just talking about him. And again, he's one of those individuals that has an impact on my life.
Yeah.
And him and his nephew, Mark. But Philip went to school with Steve Golding.
Oh, did he?
They were in the same class.
Oh, right.
And Steve Reynolds.
I suppose I saw Steve the other week as well. Yeah.
And when I went as a PC, I think it was through Steve Golding, but I didn't know him, but knew of him.
Yeah.
And then throughout the years, touched base in one way or another. And then when I was promoted the divisional commander, Neville Moss was the mayor of Southend, and George Kraviak was the chief executive.
Right.
And George Kraviak's mother lived in the same village in Yorkshire as my mum. So I walked in on the first day to meet the chief executive, and I said to George, we're either going to really get on, George, or we're going to hate each other. It's going to be a battle. And he sort of laughed. And Neville Moss was the mayor and leader of the authority, and they were both mates with Philip. And we used to meet up on a Friday night in the pub called the Angel and sort out what we would try and do for the good of the town for the following week. And everyone used to say that's where all the decisions. It wasn't. We used to have a pint and talk it through and enjoy each other's company. But I got to know him really well. And then it was Philip who actually started off the hospital charity in 98.
Right.
And I went on there 2000, 2001-ish. And he said, would I come on? And then we became extremely good friends. And when he knew I was leaving, he said, will you come and work for me? I said, Philip, I would never work for you, ever. But I said I'd work with you. So I'd come in as a consultant, if you want. And I want to be able to say yea or nay.
Yeah.
If I disagree with you, I want to disagree with him. Also, I don't want to impact on the friendship. So when I think things aren't going right, then I want to be able to just walk out. And the other thing is I want the freedom. And if you ask me to do something, if I'm around, I'll do it. If I'm not around, I won't do it. And if I want to go away, I've got kids living in Scotland now, north of Edinburgh.
Right.
And grandkids, and I've got my son in Dubai and the rest of it. So I wanted to be in a position to be able to say yes or no. Again, he agreed, and that was 12 years ago now, 10, 12 years ago. And again, I've learned so much from him, from his nephew, and from the youngsters. I mean, we employ 1,000 people, but there's some young people there. I do some inputs to leadership course,
yep.
Talk about conflict management and communication skills and various other bits and pieces, leadership. But they are some bright cookies.
Oh, there are. Yeah, there are.
Real bright cookies.
And it's amazing the amount of work that you and the organisation do within the Southend community. I mean, unsung heroes, the stuff that you do. You have awards evenings, and it's all about mentoring and support. And I've worked down there, as you know, with your team, and everybody is valued. Every opinion is valued, but they work hard. And do you know what I really like? Nobody is above a job.
No.
I've seen family members down there, they've been sweeping the floor. This is an organisation that is enormous. You know, the footfall, the turnover, everything is enormous down there. But everybody's got a role to play. If it means that Philip's got to go and cook the chips in one of the that's what they do, you know.
He'll burn them.
He'll burn them, yeah. But
his philosophy, his strategy is simple. do not walk past a piece of litter. When I'm walking around with him, which I do quite frequently, we talk about what makes the world tick. We spend 90% of our time picking up litter. Now, when you think an organisation as diverse, you've got radio stations, property, Sea Life Centre, I mean, numerous, 1,000 people working for him, Stockvale Limited, Stockvale Holdings, 6, 7, 8, 10 companies. And his philosophy is, well, he's got two philosophies. Rush slowly is one of his sayings. He manages risk better than anybody I've ever known in my life. And he won't walk past a piece of litter. And that's a very simple strategy and philosophy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And as a leader in the police, that's what we wanted our people to do. We just wanted them to not walk past the problem, deal with the problem in front of them.
Yeah,
because otherwise the person behind's got to pick that problem up. And that was normally when it got to my lap, and then when you're the boss, it gets to you because it's escalated out of control. And what does the future look like then for Mick? What are you going to do, mate?
Well, I still enjoy getting up every day. I'm still working with every time you walk into Dementia Island or Stockvale, something else. So there's 2 or 3 major projects this year. We've been through COVID, obviously, which had a massive impact on business, and trying to recover and invest. I mean, my hat goes off to any business now. So I'm involved in that on the periphery, and I enjoy it. I'd like to do something else. I've always wanted to write a book or something, but to be honest, I'm not sure I've got the talent or You've got to be very single-minded, haven't you?
I'll talk to you after this about that.
And I do respect anybody who does that. But no, I'm always looking for something. Yeah, I love getting out of bed in the morning. I love doing something. I love exercising. I'm on the push bike every morning. I like the fresh air.
Brilliant.
And I like seeing the kids. I like seeing the grandkids.
Of course.
And if there's another opportunity somewhere, even at the age of coming up to 67 now, I will certainly have one eye open for it.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's experience.
I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's quite a cathartic sort of.
It is. I was going to use the same word, funny.
And I enjoy it. And as I said to you before, talking to people that I know, people that I respect, and you fall into both those categories. So I'd like to thank you so much for your time today. But it's an old police saying which probably doesn't get used now. But is there anything you'd like to add, alter, or correct in relation to the statement that you've just made?
No. It's a whistle-stop tour, and there's many, many things you can remember, isn't it, and think of many individuals. But even if I haven't mentioned them, believe me, I'm truly grateful for all the support I've ever had, and the kindness shown, and the support being given by others.
Brilliant. Well, Mick, I'm going to conclude this interview, but I think we'll be doing another one soon.